With details on Vince McMahon being backstage at Raw and more, this is Wrestling Hub. My name is John and you're watching the Wrestling Report. Before we get into the rest of the video, make sure you subscribe to Wrestling Hub and turn on all notifications to stay up to date with everything in the world of pro wrestling. Also, don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Wrestling Hub Official and follow us on Twitter at Wrestling_Hub. On the Going Broadway podcast, former WCW President Eric Bischoff talked about the AEW World Champion MJF, saying, sure, he's a very talented dude, very talented, unquestionably. I'd be surprised if he doesn't end up in WWE. MJF will only fly as high as the ceiling in AEW lets him fly. The audience is what the audience is. It's not growing, and unless something changes in AEW related to storytelling and structure and discipline and creative, because the creative sucks, that's all there is. Talking about the AEW champion's physical status prior to Revolution, Sean Ross Sapp reported that MJF had went into this match banged up from the brawl a couple of weeks ago. Going back to Eric Bischoff, he said this to Going Broadway Digital about possibly returning to AEW. Not from my perspective, but I'm sure from Tony Khan's it might be. I know he's taken exceptions to some of the things I've said and I don't blame him. Nonetheless, he's not hoping to get back on TV all that frequently or ever truly. As a matter of fact, assuming that he at no point ever needs to venture out from home in the future, he'll be happy with that. Look, if it happens, I'll be grateful, I'll be happy. If there's an opportunity to kind of mend the fences and jump back and stick my toe in the water a couple of times a year, sure, it's always going to be fun for me, but if it doesn't happen, my life isn't going to change. I'm all good. I'm living in a lifelong dream, so if I never leave Wyoming again, that's okay too. Taking to Instagram following Raw, MVP would pose with the Street Profits, Carmelo Hayes, and Omos for a photo as he wrote, backstage in Boston talking to some people. For an interview with Sean Ross Sapp, pro wrestling legend Raven addressed a possible return to the ring following another procedure on his shoulder as he wrote, I've been working off and on until I had my knees replaced. I had them replaced last year. I got to get my shoulder replaced. I had the left shoulder replaced in 2013. I got to get the right shoulder replaced sometime in this year, hopefully in the fall. Once my knees are healed up completely and my shoulder is healed up completely, once that's done, I'll probably still do tags. That's what I've been doing. I don't like being a babyface, but on the indies I have to be. The fans come to see the stars. It's not fair to just turn yourself to make them boo you even though they don't want to, especially for a couple hundred people. It's just not worth it. But as a babyface, I can tag with somebody, I come in on the shine, I beat the guy up, I don't get touched. Then I tag in my partner, he gets beat up, he makes the hot tag to me, I bump the other guys and go into the finish. So I don't have to take any bumps, but nobody knows because nobody realizes I'm not bumping because the way the storyline is set up. Look at the Rock and Roll Express. Ricky bumped all the time and Robert just came in and got the hot tag. Instead of doing a bunch of false finishes, which everybody does anyway, I just go right to the finish. I don't even use my finish, the Raven Effect DDT, because of the bumping in it, because of my shoulder. What I would do is, I would do the drop toe hold into the chair, which gets the same pop, and then I either let my partner do the DDT, because he's a local guy, and he gets the rub, or I just pin the guy after the drop toe hold into the chair. That way nobody's going, oh, we didn't get the DDT, you know what I mean? So all the bases are covered. It's all psychology. If you work smart, you don't have to work as hard. You can have a career forever if you work the babyface in tags. Touching on his appearance on Raw last night in Boston, John Cena wrote on Twitter, last night was the first time I entered the arena and had the thought that it might be the last time. I'll never be able to put into words how much I love the WWE Universe. Recalling his final WrestleMania match, Bryan Danielson made an interesting revelation telling Sports Illustrated, "It didn't mean anything to me. I felt nothing. You have to remember, it was our first time back in front of a live crowd since the start of the pandemic, and we were in front of thousands of people. I felt nothing during that match. I was trying my best, but it felt like I was going through the motions. Then I wrestled Roman in the Thunderdome in front of all these screens, and I loved that match. It was the perfect way for me to end my WWE career. Putting together the WrestleMania match, I could feel a little bit of my apathy. Something was wrong. It was very glaring to me." Speaking about a relationship with Bryan Danielson, AEW referee Aubrey Edwards said this on The Sessions. "We're super professional. I would say we're not buddy-buddy close, but I love working with him. He's a real funny guy. He just has his jokes that he tries to drive home and tell everybody. He talks about flaccid penises a lot. It's hilarious. I love it. There are very few people that are that into wrestling. Dax Harwood is probably the other guy, but it's literally all Bryan thinks about is wrestling. When you're working with him, he's thought about every little thing that he's doing. He's also one of those guys that is really giving, and when he's with an opponent, he's making sure that his opponent has all of their offense in. He's finding ways to really represent the best possible match. Working with him is fantastic because I get a new understanding of wrestling psychology. I have an awesome match, I can work, and I'm working with a guy who is literally my favorite wrestler when I started watching wrestling." Talking about a match down the road with Brock Lesnar taking place, Intercontinental Champion Gunther told the Ringer Wrestling Show, "Brock is the one that has to happen at some point. I think I made him my personal biggest obstacle. The Royal Rumble was literally the first time I met him. It was brief, but that moment that we had in the Rumble was great because that was all I needed out of it. It was basically like a real live confirmation that the audience is up for that. They want to see it. When I watched him when he started in WWE, he was always the most impressive guy to me. Absolute beast. I saw his stuff in Japan and UFC. Then he came back and he's been on top since then. One of the best wrestlers to ever do it in my mind. For that reason, I want to be able to prove myself against him." During an interview with WrestleBinge, 2023 Royal Rumble winner Cody Rhodes talked about his father's name being brought up in his feud with Roman Reigns, as he said, "Can't avoid it. Those nights when I make it clear that I'm not going to talk about Dusty at all is the night that the other guy talks about Dusty. Just recently with Roman, I wasn't really interested in the idea of we're going to converse on my father, but he has a very unique relationship and had a very unique relationship with my father, so he's the one that took it up there. I'm always hip and keen to the amount of emotion that happens with me on television. Everything everyone has been watching since I came back at the Royal Rumble is real. In an industry where there is a suspension of disbelief and areas of gray, this is the most real anything has ever been. Trying to win a title that my family never got. The last opportunity we got for it was in the late 70s. It's as real as it gets. Coming back from a very real injury, trying to make it to the Royal Rumble, surviving Gunther until I was able to eliminate him, very real. I like that. I prefer that. I have the responsibility, but also to a degree, the burden of the character that I play is myself. That's what makes Finish the Story sound even better. It's a real story." Giving an update on his brother Jeff going into rehab after being arrested for DUI last summer, Matt Hardy said on his Extreme Life podcast, "He just went into it with a different mentality. He's never been this scared before. I think one of the biggest things you're going to see about Jeff Hardy going forward is how he wants to share this story and try and help other people now. That's something he's been very adamant in already." As Ronda Rousey is dealing with an arm injury, Dave Meltzer noted on Wrestling Observer Radio that it's going to be Lita and Becky Lynch, but Rousey and Baszler are still getting the tag team title shot as has been planned all along and likely winning them, unless Rousey's injury doesn't heal, which they are right now of the impression that she's not going to be 100% healed, but the impression is that she would be ready to do the match. Talking about the ongoing WrestleMania feud between Bray, Wyatt, and Bobby Lashley, Dave Meltzer said this on Wrestling Observer Radio. "And then Bobby just smeared Uncle Howdy like he was just a nobody. Yeah, he sure did. Yeah, no, this doesn't make any sense at all. No, this storyline, yes, this storyline sucks. And it's also like, you know, kind of like death, you know what I mean?" As WWE Chairman Vince McMahon was backstage during last night's show in Boston, PW Insider said that McMahon was never slated to appear on Raw. McMahon was not there to take over creative or to even run the taping. McMahon was in Boston, everyone was told, to visit with John Cena. The usual production and executive team were handling things no different than usual. We were also told that Vince was sporting quite the mustache. WrestleVotes added, while Vince McMahon was in gorilla the entire show and said to be in a pleasant mood, I'm told his presence backstage didn't impact anything script-wise last night. The Wrestling Observer would say this about McMahon being backstage. This was Boston, and John Cena's last WWE appearance for SmackDown was in Tampa. Not that it's any big deal. He can go anywhere he wants. He's got a private jet. It's a lot easier for him. He was in gorilla all night, so what does that tell you? He wasn't barking orders all night at anyone or anything like that, but he was, he was in gorilla all night. And I was told that they tell you that he was only there to visit John Cena, and that's the story, but there's more to it than that. I don't know. I mean, he's doing more than they're letting on, but the person in control was Triple H. It's not like Vince McMahon was there and doing stuff, but it's not like he was there to see John Cena, say hi to a few people, and left. That didn't happen either. So the truth is in the middle, most likely, for sure, actually. Speaking of Raw in Boston last night, it seems a fan was kicked out by security for apparently starting a brawl. Here's a video. And this was your Pro Wrestling News Update. I hope you're all having a great day. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see y'all later.